if you were working on a computer, like you're just kind of dragging and you need a little bit of focus, that kind of thing, you're going to be feeling pretty good for the next, 20 minutes or so. And then after that, you're going to have to be a little bit more intentional about what you're doing, right? Because this isn't just something that you do it once and then you're set for a week, right? Our nervous systems are making adjustments, thousands of times every minute, if not more. And so
crazy.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on there.
At Active Life, we believe that the healthcare clinic of the future is the gym.
Everybody starts with the best case scenario in mind.
Never sell anything to anybody who is not in the market for what you have.
The only reason we work out is to create the opportunity to recover.
And the healthcare provider of the future is the coach.
And this is why you guys need to get paid well, because what you're doing is really, really hard work.
Lance Einerson, welcome to the Active Life Podcast. Dr. Lance Einerson, welcome back to the Active Life Podcast.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to have you. For people who don't know, I talked about it in the intro, but I'm going to tell you again. Lance is on staff at Active Life. He is a one-on-one coach. He built out our breathwork course. He is going to be building out our Orthopedic Considerations Course so that we can actually help coaches matriculate into the healthcare model of the future. And today he's going to walk us through some breath work, some neurological state management, so that you can start to actually understand how to alter the way that your body feels and the way that your body functions so you can be alert and calm at the same time.
That's right. So what we're going to do is work through this short protocol. It's going to take a couple of minutes. If you're driving, maybe not the best thing, but other than that, go ahead, follow along with us. And the principle that I want you to think about while we're doing this is that your body is the only environment that actually matters. And that's what we're doing with the breath, is we're changing the environment internally so that we can change the way that we feel, we can change the way that we show up, we can change the way that we perform. Okay, so just get comfortable. You're going to, you can do this either lying down or sitting up. Either way is fine. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to have 20 breaths. Okay, these breaths are going to be big. You can do this in through nose and mouth. Doesn't really matter on this because we're actually going to be ramping up your nervous system in this first part. So 20 breaths are going to be big like this. And then just a relax. Okay, so try to fill your whole torso, rib cage, everything with those breaths. Okay, then we'll have a short hold.
So we're going to do this together.
Yeah, we're going to do it together. I'm just going to lay it out so that they know what's coming. Okay, we'll have a short hold, and then we will have a few breaths that you're going to have 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. That's it. Okay, very simple. I'll walk you through the entire thing.
Okay.
All right.
I'm doing it with you guys.
Okay, we're going to do 20 breaths. Okay, so get comfortable, get set, and we're going to take 20 breaths in, big ones, and then you just relax to let them go. Okay, so 1, 2, halfway. Two more. Now hold your breath empty. While you're holding your breath empty, pay attention to the way that your body feels. You'll probably feel a change in temperature. You may feel kind of hot, or that your temperature has dramatically dropped. It kind of depends on the person, but you'll feel a difference there. You might feel your heart rate changing a little bit. Now just hold that for a few more seconds and pay attention to the sensations that are going on inside of your body. Okay, I'm going to count down to 10 more seconds. If you have to start breathing before then, not a big deal. Just breathe normally here for a second. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a normal breath. Okay, now we're going to inhale for 5 seconds. In for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now we're going right back to 20 big breaths. Okay, so in. Halfway. Five more. Exhale, hold that exhale. And again, focus on the change in sensation of your body. You might feel a little bit lightheaded, totally normal on this. Pay attention to the sensations, not just in the central parts of your body, so like not just in your head or not just in your chest, but look to your hands, your feet, everywhere. The pressure of your butt on the seat, whatever position you're in, just so that you can take in the sensation of everything that's going on. All right, count it down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Normal breath. And then 3 more of these breaths of 5 and 10. So in for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one. In for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And back to breathing normal. Before you do anything else now, consider the way that you feel, both in terms of how alert you are, any shift of emotionality, and then also any change in physical sensation. So you're not looking for anything in particular, but you're trying to compare, apples to apples of where you were when you started versus where you were when you ended, and take a moment to digest that. All right. So the whole concept of that is that we are ramping your nervous system up so that we are getting you into the sympathetic end of the spectrum. So fight or flight, that's the common term that people are familiar with. So we're getting you into that end of the spectrum, and then dialing it down just a little bit with the extended breath cadence, so that you're both alert, so you're ready, prepared for whatever it is that you have coming, and that you're alert and you know what's going on, but you are in control, so you're calm and collected.
That was cool.
Thanks.
I kind of feel like I ate an edible 45 minutes ago. I didn't. I feel like I ate an edible 45 minutes ago, and it's that 15 minutes of like, it's starting to kick in just a little bit, and my body feels a little bit different than it did. And I know I'm on my way to something totally different, but I feel
it's
like
cheaper.
It's way cheaper. How long does this last?
So it depends on what you're doing, right? So if you were to do that before, say, some sort of like physical competition or a workout, or kind of like you and I were talking about, like a boxing class, right? What that's going to do is essentially get you preloaded to do the thing, to do the activity. And you're going to not have that ramp up that you usually have to have in like your workouts or your competition, to where the first couple minutes you're like, oh man, like I'm not quite all here yet. You're going to go in hot. So you're going to be ready to go. If you were working on a computer, like you're just kind of dragging and you need a little bit of focus, that kind of thing, you're going to be feeling pretty good for the next, 20 minutes or so. And then after that, you're going to have to be a little bit more intentional about what you're doing, right? Because this isn't just something that you do it once and then you're set for a week, right? Our nervous systems are making adjustments, thousands of times every minute, if not more. And so
crazy.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on there.
So what it feels like to me, if I was writing a book right now, this would be the opportunity for me to start when I have like the writer's block. What's the first thing I'm going to talk about? And I'm trying to focus on the book, but there's this thing going on in the other room. Like this would allow me to just start. And then ideally that gets me into flow state and I don't need to keep doing this all day long.
Yeah, exactly. It's the pattern interrupt, right? Of like, here's the distraction, all these other things are going on. I need to make a change so that I can step outside of that cycle and start doing the things that are important, that need my attention, that need my focus. And so it is a really good way to reset focus.
Okay. Now, is this something that you're teaching people in our new breathwork course that's part of Pro Coach?
Yeah, so it's not so much that we go over a ton of like specific protocols. What we go over and what we teach is the principles behind them so that you can create your own protocols, whether it's on the fly for like a group class, or it's like, hey, I have this one client who can't hinge very well because, she had an old back injury and she's scared, and that movement pattern is just no bueno for her. So let's change her breathing maybe before her workout or during her workout so that she can be in the correct state to do that work, so that this can be something that's therapeutic rather than threatening, and she can get all the benefits. So it's very principle based.
Yeah, that's cool. So what you're describing is, and for people who are listening to this who are like, oh, here he is, pitching the Pro Coach program. I legitimately don't know what's in the breathwork course. Like I just, everyone who's been through it for beta testing is like, it's fucking awesome. But I legitimately don't know what's in it because I haven't made the time to go through it completely myself. That's not a knock to you. That's actually a feather in your cap that I have enough confidence, faith, trust, whatever it's going to be, that you're going to deliver a really good course. And I don't need to oversee it and say, yeah, that was great. Because that's what we do. That's what you do. So I was genuinely curious. So what you're describing then is that was a protocol that you came up with yourself. That's not like you didn't borrow that from Wim Hof. You didn't borrow that from Belisa Vranish. You didn't borrow that from somebody, Trisha Smith. That's yours.
Yeah. I mean, when we spoke earlier, like, hey, let's do some sort of breathing thing so that we can help people to understand why this is important and what's going on. I just thought to myself, okay, what do people need right now? A lot of people are freaking out. I mean, there's a pandemic thing, in case you missed it, it's going on. There's crazy political things. Like there's a lot going on in the world, and people are having a hard time managing their state, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, like they're having a hard time managing that. So what is something that can be helpful? Okay, people need to be able to turn on, ramp up, and get after it without being incredibly emotional or terrified or jittery. They need to be able to show up. And so this is just principles, right? I just don't use an upregulation principle with the increased breath rate and depth, and then dialed it back by extending an exhale. That's it.
What's the value
simple.
of extending the exhale? Not even extending the exhale. What's the value of holding the empty breath? So the idea that like I just let all my air out and now I'm holding my breath there.
Yeah. So with this, there's a couple things going on. Well, there's a lot of things going on. With
Thousands of things a minute.
with the breathing, like the accelerated breathing that we did, that is way faster than normal breathing. I mean, if you look at a textbook, usually it says something in the range of like 12-ish breaths is like normal for an adult. If you look back into like some performance things, and if you look at old data from like the 20s and like earlier and stuff like that, that number should be actually closer to like 6, you know? And so the greater that number is, or the more breaths you're taking, and especially if they're large breaths, that's going to push you into that sympathetic state. And we're also dumping a ton of carbon dioxide, which is the stress messenger of the body, but it's also what dilates your airways to keep them open. Okay?
So why is it that as I do that kind of thing, because I remember November 2018, I took a Wim Hof seminar.
Mm-hmm.
The first time that we hold the exhale, it's hard. There's a lot of panic. Like, it's like, I need to let this exhale, I need to take a deep breath. The third time, I think I held my breath the third time for like 2.5 minutes, which compared to the first time with no air in my lungs, well, no intentional air in my lungs, right?
Yeah.
The first time was like 40 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that we so quickly adapt to that and are able to hold longer?
Okay, so this goes back to what I was talking about before with the carbon dioxide. Mm-hmm. Because it's a stress messenger, we're dumping a ton of it, which means that you're kind of you're removing that signal from the system, and that's the signal that tells you to breathe. And each successive round that you would do that for something like Wim Hof breathing, you're lowering the amount of CO2 in your system every single time. But then it builds back up pretty quickly when you're holding an exhale, because there's not a bunch of oxygen in your lungs to switch places with the carbon dioxide. So of what you're talking about, what's happening is you're dumping CO2, but because you're spending time under tension, you're also increasing your tolerance. It's a double whammy.
Okay.
Which is what essentially stress inoculation is.
Okay. So we just did a little breathwork exercise together. You, me, thousands of people. Hopefully they all did it together. Everybody stopped at the exact same time and did it together. It's great. I know that's what happened. What's the value beyond that? Like, why think about breath work? Why think about state management? When I imagine the more, like if you're stressed at work, it's potentially inappropriate to at your cubicle start breaking into the breaths that we just did. If you're stressed in a conversation with somebody, you can't be like, hold on 1 second, Lance. I need to break into 5 minutes of intentional breath work to regulate my state. How is it practically valuable in any time of life besides as a primer?
Why would anybody go and squat to get stronger legs? Like, they're not going to be like, oh wait, no, I have to squat before I go play football or like play with my kids, right? But so, it's the same thing that we train it on the front end, and then you take those easily applied principles that you can do on the fly.
What's an example of those?
Because you don't need to take a break.
I hear what you're saying. What I'm not understanding, that I imagine if I don't understand it, a lot of people also don't understand it. And that's not because I think I'm so smart. It's just because when one person has a problem,
yeah, whatever, Sean, whatever, man.
All right, fine. I am so smart. How do you use it on the fly? Like, the reason why I would squat before I need to squat, if I thought squatting was a valuable exercise to do on a regular basis, would be because I develop strength while I'm squatting that I have when I'm not squatting after the fact. What do I have after I've done this if it's gone in 20 minutes?
Perfect. So there's a difference between adaptation and state. Okay. So state is on the fly in the moment. It changes very, very rapidly, which is why people have a hard time when they're like, oh, I'm going to work, I get cut off in traffic, I'm like angry at my kids or my wife or whatever, and then you get to the office and then someone's like, hey Sean, how are you? And you're like, shut up.
Yeah. For the record, that doesn't happen with me, but yeah.
Right? Like, you get the idea, right? That your state should be adjusting very quickly. Mm-hmm. Like, you shouldn't be worrying about all the, you know, like the petty little argument that may have happened in the morning or somebody pulling out in front of you in traffic, right? Like, it's not personal. It just happens, you know,
right.
Somebody didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
That state, it changes very quickly, and we need to be able to adapt with that state quickly. The adaptation that we're looking for the most with breath work is being able to navigate those state changes with grace, essentially, to be able to move up and down them. And much of that comes from your ability to tolerate carbon dioxide and those sensations, the things that change, like the things I was cueing you to pay attention to when we were doing the breath work. Those things change the way that we feel and the way that we perceive life. You know, those sensations that are happening inside of our bodies. So the thing that you get to take with you is you get to say, okay, that thing I'm feeling, it's not because the world is stacking the deck against me. It's because I just have a little bit more CO2 in my system. It's okay. I'm going to breathe through my nose, make sure to do that while I am having this conversation that is important. And you're going to be able to navigate those things much more easily.
So what you're describing, I think I just put something together that I didn't understand before. I mean, you were a little bit helpful at putting it together, but you know,
doing my thing.
Let's pretend I'm driving somewhere and I get cut off and I'm pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Are you suggesting that in that moment, I will end up creating an environment that is higher in CO2 than otherwise?
That you will end up, I mean,
if I don't
the short answer is kind of no.
Okay.
But you're on the right track. The short answer, or not, this is not the short answer. The answer is that you're going to have changes in your body because you perceived a threat, mm-hmm. that you're going to get in a wreck or something. And then you perpetuate that threat because that guy's a douchebag.
Mm-hmm.
That's changing your body. Okay? That's shifting your nervous system. Naturally, what you're going to want to do is start dumping carbon dioxide, that stress messenger, so that you can step up and rip their face off because you're defending your tribe, right? Like if we talk about this like evolutionarily, right? So that's what's happening. If you can create enough space and interrupt that pattern and keep your breathing under control, just breathing through your nose, you're going to hold on to that CO2. And instead of bouncing back and forth in your state, you're going to be able to transition smoothly in the direction you need to go.
So I think I get it better now. It's the opposite of what I was talking about. You're saying I would look to get rid of CO2 so I could perform optimally for a short period of time in terms of my ability to exert force or whatever needs to come next. And the moment in which I have that ability, if I'm not intentional about it, my lizard brain, maybe not my lizard brain, I shouldn't go there. My brain mm-hmm. is going to perpetuate that state where
Correct.
Interrupting that heightened state of mind with an intentional breath regulates the amount of CO2 that's in my system and interrupts the pattern, which breaks my heightened state.
Correct. But to be clear here, those states aren't bad.
Right.
They're not wrong. That is something that I believe in the whole breath work community, whatever you want to call it. I hate that. I absolutely hate it. It's like, oh, you shouldn't ever be like, you shouldn't get ramped up or whatever. Like you shouldn't ever be like angry, or you shouldn't ever be in these states. And that's garbage because they're highly adaptable. Like they're extremely important. If we didn't have them, we would have been wiped out a long, long time ago.
Yeah, they're beneficial.
They just need to be we need to be in those states when it's appropriate, mm-hmm. and not in them when it's not.
I can tell you when I have a really good day at work, I know, because when I get in the car on the way home, I want to listen to Ice Cube on really loud and I want to blast out to it. And I know what state, I know what state that's in. You know, like that's, I'm basking in all of those chemicals that are flowing through my body that I don't need in the moment, but like, let's go. I'm feeling good. I know I had a good day and I'm leaving the office in a heightened state. Yeah. And it actually does take me on those days, especially, some intentional effort to be able to fall asleep. And by the way, the same is true when I have a perceptively stressful day at the office and I come home and I'm like, I love the kids. I just don't want to hang out with them right now. I need a minute to go be alone to reset my state so that I can be present with the kids.
Absolutely. And that's really the same task, right? I don't know if it's a problem. It's the same task that I need to be in a state that is appropriate for my task, for what I need to show up for, whether that is work or that's showing up for the kids when you get home.
So can we talk about how people can start better thinking about the difference between state and feeling and state and action? You know, the idea that, for example, we were talking about this a little bit before we came on. I can be both in the sympathetic state, which is the heightened state, and have extreme mental clarity and calm at the same time. It is not just because I'm going through this state of neurological positioning state. I was just trying to not use the same word again. Damn it. You know, just because I'm in that state does not mean that I'm going to act a certain way. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So we have this, let's talk about this or think about it in terms of a spectrum, right? We have the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight. That's what we call it at one end. And the other end, we have parasympathetic, which is feed and breathe. Breathing all the time. Feed and breathe. Okay. And we are constantly moving up and down this spectrum. If you get all the way to one end, so if you get completely maxed out on the sympathetic or the fight or flight end of things, that's what we would consider flooded. Okay. That's where you might actually kind of like lose your mind of like you're seeing red. Okay. But that's at the very, very height, like the very end of the spectrum. Other than that, and the end of the parasympathetic spectrum, which is like a coma. Okay. Other than those two little slivers at the end of the spectrum, we should have the capacity to maintain a level head no matter where we are at. So I mean, like Tom Brady, right? Love him or hate him, it doesn't really matter. Like the dude's really good at what he does, and he has been for an extremely long time. He's pretty calm under pressure. I mean, he's won a few Super Bowls, right?
Several.
But I don't think that he's out there and he's like half asleep because he's like just like zenned out in the middle of the game. Like he's ready to go. He's ready to, make changes on the fly. He's ready to pick people, out on the field that are downfield to be able to make those throws. And you can't do that. You can't have that level of focused attention if you're just slammed down in your parasympathetic state. You're not going to be able to move fast. You're not going to be able to respond quickly. Nothing. The only good thing that would happen is if you're in a really parasympathetic state, is you would be able to recover really well after you got sacked.
So does it live on a spectrum in that, let's just say you're 1 to 100 and 1 is parasympathetic completely, 100 is sympathetic completely. Are we looking, is Tom Brady functioning at like a 65? Is that what, but I'm not asking if you know his number.
Yeah.
I'm asking if that's how it works. Like, are we both in parasympathetic and sympathetic at the same time to different degrees?
Yeah. We have to have it's the gas and the brake, right? I mean, that's the analogy that gets used pretty often. There's the gas and the brake. And if you have no brakes, like that is not good. And we've all been around people who are like that. We've all been around people who fly off the handle, who maybe they're violent, maybe they're not, but things just blow up around them all of the time. And we've been around people that, like they're just like a perpetual stoner, essentially, that nothing matters. And they're like, it's all right. It's okay. Right. And like both are like equally annoying most of the time, because you're just like, okay, like we need to be able to move up and down the spectrum here because life has different demands. And if you can't meet those different demands, then your performance, air quotes there, whether that's in the gym or in relationships, is going to suck. You need to be able to move up and down.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is that I can be predominantly sympathetic, fight or flight, and at the same time keep a calm mind that functions as if I'm in parasympathetic from the way that people view the two of them from the outside world. If the view from the outside world is parasympathetic is calm, sympathetic is heightened, then the mental acuity there does not have to go with the physical readiness in the same space. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. Because being ramped up, so like we talk about this in terms of stress, right? Mm-hmm. Being ramped up, that comes with a whole myriad of physiological responses that give you the capacity to perform at your best.
Well,
and you don't get those.
I feel like I can speak to this personally. Mm-hmm. When I used to play competitive sports, every year I was like on fire when I would hit the field, like a maniac. Mm-hmm. And then my senior year, I was like, I don't give a shit anymore. Like, my coach is an idiot. I don't think he understands what he's doing. I'm just going to go out there and play. Like, I don't even care anymore. Mm-hmm. I want to be good. I do care, but I don't care what any of these people think. And so when I would go out to pitch, instead of going out to pitch in like a, let's get it, like in a rage, I would go out there like, who cares, mentally. But physically, my body still had all of those same tingles. It still had all of that same rush of energy that allowed me to put everything into each moment physically. Mm-hmm. That's what I feel like you're describing. And by the way, that I was exponentially better that year than any other year of my high school sports career. Right? But now in business, I'm in position where I'm oftentimes having discussions with people about big sums of money. Mm-hmm. And I get the exact same feelings that I had when I was playing sports at the highest level I ever played at, right? I got cut from my college teams, whoop-de-doo. Mm-hmm. But now it's like I get heightened. I feel the same, like, low, yeah, like this is the juices flowing. I feel it. Mm-hmm. But mentally, it's total calm. Yeah. Like, they would never know I'm feeling that heightened state. And it's in a few recent cases, as soon as the calls were over, it was like, whoo, that wasn't the noise I made. But you know what? You follow what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't know. Have you ever seen the video of Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, getting his first deal with MTV?
No.
I feel like it's the perfect explanation of what you're describing here. So in this video, check it out. Yeah, I'll send it to you. He's negotiating something with MTV, and they agree to what he wants. And he's like, oh, thank you so much. Like, and he's laughing. He's like, oh, yeah, that'd be great. I really appreciate that. Oh, yeah, awesome. All right. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, thank you. And he hangs up the phone. And he looks at someone who was filming him. He's like, what you got next? And he just stands up. He's like, I could do anything. And he trashes his desk, like slams the phone. He's like, what you got next? I could do anything. And he just goes nuts. And it's like, that is the moment where he allows his mental clarity to go away. And he allows himself to see that red that you were describing, both physically and mentally at the same time, which would have been extremely detrimental
30 seconds earlier.
Yeah, in the conversation earlier. But it doesn't mean he wasn't feeling that rushing through his body as he was maintaining calm on the phone. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of this all comes back to what you think about the situation, what you're experiencing, right? Because you only get those that ramp up, right? The change of your physiology and those things when something that you care about is on the line. Okay, so like you don't get those physiological responses unless you care about what is happening. So whether that's going out on the field, whether that is, making a business deal, it doesn't really matter what the thing is that's on the line. but that you have the perspective that it's actually on the line and you need to step up.
I wonder if that has anything to do with the behavior of somebody who is devoid of empathy when something is going on, where you're like, how could you say that like that? Mm-hmm. Where that's what you're thinking in your head. Where the other version of it, because it's just nothing, doesn't mean anything to them that somebody else feels bad or is having something harmful done to them. Mm-hmm. Where the other side of that is like, yo, calm down. Like that is not the response to this. You don't need to break down into tears and scream and cry and break things.
Absolutely.
Where that could be a person who is potentially extremely empathetic and is just feeling everything and not reconciling it. And I don't mean to make anything binary, right? There's of course someone who's empathetic could have a very normal, controlled response.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking to the uncontrolled extremes.
Yeah, 100%. If we don't have some sort of, if we're not seeing that there's some sort of skin in the game, that's absolutely going to change the way that we respond to things. Which conversely, if we're seeing that there's more skin in the game than there actually is, that's also going to throw things for a loop, right? So like I might be able to, see something or, have a conversation with my wife and I read into it a little bit too much. And like that could lead to me having a profoundly different response to that situation than maybe my wife did. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's all based upon what I saw in that, like how much I cared about that thing because of the way I was seeing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. It's the conscious, it's the conscious mind creating a subconscious physiological change.
Yeah. Which is where the whole breathing stuff comes in with this, because when you talk about that, you're like, okay, like this is like that. It's interesting. Like this is kind of how we think about it. This is how it works. But like what does that do for me? Now I know that it's how it works. Great. But with the breathing stuff, it's like, okay, now we get to create some space between that conversation, my response, and I get to navigate it intentionally instead of just being along for the ride based upon, my upbringing or whether or not I got a decent night's sleep last night.
Yeah, a few months ago, I talked to Aaron Hind about this. Aaron Hind being the one of the founders and CEO, COO, whatever he is, of Life Aid Beverage Company, who makes Fit Aid, talking about creating gap between emotion and action. And he actually said something that I found really, really profound and valuable. And he was talking about it would be ideal if we conditioned ourselves in such a way where that gap was unnecessary because our actions were aligned with our intentions in response to our emotions. I just thought that was really cool. And what you're describing is being able to condition ourselves within that gap, which allows us to shorten it and shorten it and shorten it and shorten it. And I can speak to that as well. Maybe you've had experiences like this too. You have kids, but where they do something and I'm like, you love them, don't kill them. You love them, don't kill them. You love them, don't kill them. And I remember one time my oldest daughter, we were sleep training her, like as a toddler, to stay in her room. She was in a bed now. She wasn't in a crib. And it was just a night where she was relentlessly coming out of her room. It was really frustrating. And we thought we had it done, and we didn't. She came out, and I got so angry. So angry. And I'm 15 stairs away from my daughter's bedroom when I'm in the living room. It's like 2 steps to the stairs and then 15 steps up and then 3 more steps and I'm in her room. So I'm total of 20 steps away, right? By the time I had gotten 20 steps, I was totally calm. Like totally calm. I was able to, in the time from the couch to the 20 steps away, I was able to take my entire state from I'm just going to choke her to sleep all the way down to why is she struggling with this? Let me meet her where she's at. Let's have a conversation. Let's handle this like an adult. Mm-hmm. And that was probably for me the first time in my adult life that I really recognized the value of being able to do the kind of stuff that you're teaching right now as it applies to relationships with people I care about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And something that's really interesting with this, and this is this is bonus, right? So this is something that's not actually in like the breathwork immersion, but we talk about it kind of a little bit. It's kind of beyond what's in there, is that your values matter. So let's stick with this parenting example of like, I value my children as human beings, right? I value them as human beings, but also as the human beings that they have the potential of becoming. So that means I have to watch myself. I have to show up as the best version of myself that I think will give them the best chance possible to become the best version of themselves, right? And when we lean on our values, we lean on those things, I believe that's where that gap begins to disappear, because we begin to act essentially instinctually on those values. We always have that anchor of the breath, so we have something physical to anchor it to. And we're able to transition through those different states very quickly and very smoothly. So from sleep training, getting the toddler in bed, to back downstairs, having the conversation with, you know, with your wife of whatever thing that she was maybe struggling with that day, to I'm answering this last email to this person who is super high maintenance that I'm working with, and being able to transition through all of those without being, you know, exhausted.
Mm-hmm. There's nobody left who's high maintenance that we work with. We choose our clients carefully. So, okay. It feels, I feel right now very aware that I could easily slip into Dunning-Kruger with this. Cool. I know how to upregulate, downregulate. Like, what else is there? I'm good. You follow me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What else is there? I'm not asking you to go through all of the other stuff that could happen, but like, other than upregulate, downregulate, interrupt state, what else is there?
The big thing is that you understand how to apply the things in the different situations, because it's like, okay, we can upregulate, we can downregulate. But then what that turns into is same thing we talked about before. Hey, hold on, pause. Let me go. I need to do the thing. I need to go upregulate. I need to do the thing because I can't have this conversation right now. I'll be back in like 40 seconds. Just hold that thought, please. Like, that's what it turns into. It turns into Instagram sound bites and, you know, yogi hacks for feeling better for the next 20 minutes, rather than actually being able to skillfully navigate state. And if that's all that there was to it, was like upregulation, downregulation, that sort of thing, then like everybody on social media, like there wouldn't be all these hashtags about stress and anxiety and like all these other things happening, because that would be so easy. And it's not that it isn't simple, because it is. It's the application is where people start to go off the rails.
So it's being able to nuance effectively how you use it situationally. That is where the worthwhile diminishing returns live.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all, I don't want to say it's all about the nuance, but it's also, there's the difference between, this is incredibly important because the way that you breathe and your nervous system literally affects everything in your life and the way that you see it, and balancing that with the fact that the breath is not a panacea. It's not the end all be all, right? It's being able to balance that, because things get out of whack very quickly when you're not able to see both sides of that coin.
One of the things that, to totally change direction here a little bit, one of the things that I've seen one of the athletes who we work with, who's your client, Christine Kohlenbrander, talk about, is the way that you helped her better breathe for double unders. Mm-hmm. Make double unders your placeholder. Mom, if you're listening, you're not doing double unders, but you run out of breath doing a list of other things. Mm-hmm. So, and my mom is listening. Mom always listens, because my mama loves me. I love you too, Mom.
Your mom's pretty cool.
She is pretty cool, right? So what did you do to help an athlete who's already in the top 0.1% of CrossFit athletes in the world and help her to be able to breathe better when she does double unders, when this woman is, like, by all intents and purposes, as fit as humans come?
Yeah. So what we were working on was CO2 tolerance, right? Same thing that we started out talking about in the beginning. With her, and we did this with some running stuff as well, but with her, the big thing was like, hey, like doing double unders, get gassed out on them, you know, relatively quick compared to all of the other things that she was doing. You know, that's like a low hanging fruit, if you will, for her fitness repertoire. And with that, people, when they're doing double unders, they stop breathing. They either hold their breath or they breathe funky, and it throws off the rhythm. So what she was doing was like, hey, you're going to do double unders for a minute. You're going to take one breath every 5 seconds. You're going to stick with that cadence. I don't care how many you do. You're going to stick with one breath every 5 seconds. And so what she had to do was she had to stick with a pace that she was able to maintain that breathing cadence for the entire time, for the allotted time. And that's very, very difficult for most people because we don't pay attention to what's going on, to all of these sensations, these things that are going on in the body. It's like, hey, I have this goal, I'm going to get it done. It doesn't matter. But if you want to be able to do it and do it well and do it for a long time, then you need to be paying attention to everything else that's happening internally. And that's really what that gave her. It's like, hey, you have more CO2 tolerance now. You're more aware of what your capacity actually is, not what you think it should be. And now you can build accordingly.
So if I'm understanding correctly, what you basically did there was you actually changed the way that her brain perceives her capacity in the moment so that she can tap into more of what's available. It didn't necessarily change what's available. It gave her access to more of what was available. Is that right? Am I understanding that correctly?
For the most part, yeah. So it gave her
that was a kind way to say no.
You're mostly right. So it gave her a clear vision of what her capacity actually was. But because was a training stimulus that was repeated over and over, her CO2 tolerance also went up.
Right.
So yes.
So both
she got more resources and a better view of what resources she actually had.
Very cool. Now, so this year when Christine wins the games, we'll just look back and say, yeah, it was cool. We'll be working on double unders. All right. What's wild is, I don't know if you know this, I've been working with a sex and love coach.
That's exciting.
It's fucking great. I interviewed her on the podcast. I don't know if it'll come out before or after this, but Lex Martinez at That Sex Chick on Instagram. It's been great. And one of the things that she talked about was remember to breathe while you're having sex, especially to my wife. She was, not for me to tell her while we're having sex, remember to breathe, but for her to remember to breathe. And the reason for it is all about state management and being able to be relaxed enough to reach orgasm, should that be the goal. And it's wild because if you're not in the appropriate state, which can be modulated by breathing, you might not be able to climax during sex. Or when you do, it could be like a small muted version of it where you're like, I think I just came.
And I'm disappointed. Right.
All that work for that. I mean, yeah, finger painting for us, I imagine, but for them, more difficult. But yeah, so like this goes so much deeper than athletic performance. It goes deeper than being able to not yell at the 84-year-old person who you would otherwise think is super cute that just cut you off because they didn't see you on the road and you were late to work, which makes it your fault that you're angry, not theirs. It goes into all aspects of life. And so I appreciate you coming on and talking about it a little bit today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's something that's been really valuable for me. I mean, for me, the whole breathing thing and everything, that was a way for me to scratch my own itch essentially, to figure things out that were going on with my own body, my own physiology, and seeing like, hey, you know what? You don't really ever have to be a victim of anything that's going on. You might be victimized by other people and have crappy things happen to you, but you never have to stay in that state. You don't ever have to stay in any state. You can change it. You can step up if you want to step up. You can run away if you want to run away. It's all up to you.
That's very cool. Any other parting thoughts before we wrap this baby up?
I don't think so. Breathe through your nose. Pay attention to what you're doing.
Unless you're upregulating, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, unless you're upregulating. Yeah, sure, whatever, man. Breathe through your nose most of the time.
I'm sure. Yeah, nobody likes a mouth breather. I'm sure we'll do this again. Where can people find you if they want?
Instagram, what is my thing? Dr.Lance.Einerson_DPT. I need to shorten that. That's super long. On Instagram. And then I have a blog that I write a lot of stuff on breathing and just my musings, which is thediscomfortlab.com. So there it is.
Perfect. We'll do this again.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Good talk.
Thanks, man. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life podcast. If you did, please be sure to head to wherever you listened to it and give us a quality review, as well as 5 stars if you can spare them. If you want more from us, feel free to follow all of our social media accounts at Active Life Professional, Active Life RX, and Dr. Sean Pastuch on Instagram. Remember, at Active Life, we believe that the healthcare clinic of the future is the gym, and the healthcare provider of the future is the coach. We also believe that future is now.